Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Gyan Krishna, TVET National Sales Manager at Macmillan Publishers. We had very good feedback to our previous sessions, and you requested more activities as a follow-up. This will be covered in depth today. You will see a control panel on your right-hand side, which would allow you to pose questions during the session. You can pose it under chat, and you'll see I've already posted some messages there welcoming you and also giving you my email if you need to contact me, any matters pertaining to today's webinar. The webinar is presented by Shailendra Sasti, who is the co-author of the TVET First book. Please note this book was rated the top book by the screening committee. So it was the best book that they determined from a submission of 15 other titles. Just briefly, something about the author. He is a provincial and college world skills South Africa expert in IT software solutions for business skills, an experienced TVET lecturer with many years in the college sector, seasoned national marker for IT subjects, including CM and IM. And I'd like to hand over to our subject expert this afternoon, Shailendra Sasti, who's going to take you through the webinar. Over to you, Shailendra.
Hi, I am Shailendra Sasti, one of the authors of the TruePath CPN4 book. Welcome to this webinar that looks at the new curriculum and the new TruePath textbook for CPN4. We are now looking at webinar 2. But before I start, I just want to have a just quick reminder on the control panel that Gyan has mentioned. If you are having audio issues, please note there is an audio button. You can click on it and you can play with your settings to make sure you improve your audio quality. If you have any questions, please do so and click here in the questions box. Gyan will try and answer these questions if he can. If not, we'll answer them later at the question and answer session. Okay, so what is the reason for this webinar? This is a continuation on webinar 1. And what we're doing here is we're going to take a deeper look at the new curriculum and outcomes. So I did receive a whole lot of questions from lecturers regarding the new curriculum. And they had some specific concerns, and I'm actually going to address some of them in this webinar. We're going to look at the effects of the changes on lecturers and students, because that's something that also came through in the questions. And I also want to introduce you to the final version of the TruePath textbook, which will hopefully assist the lecturers. Now, remember, the versions you have or you've seen already is the promo. That was our first draft. So we have now got the final version out. That's what you'll see in print copy when you get your copies next year when you order the book. So I'll just introduce you to some of the features that we brought into the final version. We are also going to discuss the guidelines for the new assessments. This was also a very popular question that came up multiple times across our many webinars. So I'm also going to feature that as well. Okay, so I'm just going to start from the beginning. Computer Practice N4. This is our model that was used by the curriculum developers when they're developing this curriculum. There's still a lot of questions around why we have so much of theory in the new course. So, and there's a lot of concern around 4IR and why it is brought in. So remember, the fourth industrial revolution is now, in essence, in every part of our working world. We see it all the time. There are massive, massive changes that are taking place, and we need to keep pace with this. So the developers have looked at what technology is needed and came up with this model. And I just want to briefly say that when you look at this model, we need to look at the change of skills that this model is now going to bring to our students. So if you look at, we now have 5 pillars, and in Each of these pillars form a topic in the new curriculum, where the first pillar is computing concepts and application skills. That is where we have all our software and introduction to computers and its components and technologies. Then we have networking communication technology, how networks work. Then we have our third pillar, which is data information management and computational thinking. We have internet communication skills and digital citizenship. Now, if you look at these 5 pillars, they are bringing, or they're trying to produce a certain level of skill that our students will actually need in the workplace. So there is a change from being able to simply use a computer, in other words, being computer literate, to actually having digital skills. And that is the difference that's now needed. I'm sure some of you have seen the latest news coming through about Amazon, where they've actually created a digital cart, a shopping cart. So you take this cart into the shopping mall, and all you do, you pick up your items and you drop it into the cart, and it automatically scans each item. And when you go to when you're done shopping and you are now cashing out, there is no normal teller. You actually go there, there's a guard, and the guard basically checks, it does your summary, and you pay at that point. And you pay to the shopping cart itself via your card, which means you're now removing the need for tellers. So these are some of the major changes that are taking place, and it's in all aspects of the different sectors. So that's the reason why we need to produce a certain level of digital skills for this new market. Otherwise, they are not going to have a job basically with the old type of skills. So I presented this in webinar 1. I just left it in there. It'll come through in the PDF and in the recording. So I'm just going to skip this one. Again, this is something I want to stress on. There's still a lot of confusion around this. So the changes to the curriculum for 2021, we said is 110 notional hours. Of that, 72 is contact. That's something we're very used to, okay? 6 hours of internal assessments. But here, the big one is the change in 32 hours of self-study. So I received a lot of communique regarding how is the self-study going to work? Is it structured? Is the department going to specify how this is going to work? So I'm going to explain this when I get to the assessment, right? It is structured, and it also is a bit of flexibility where the college or the lecturer can now bring it into their lessons, because you'll notice there's a lot of content now that needs to be covered, and not all of it can just be done in a traditional manner. So in other words, students are going to have to work independently. So it is very important that we be able to cater for this 32 hours of self-study by directing them to independent work. So that's the reason why you'll notice in the book, there's a lot of activities, there's a lot of techniques that's been brought in that's going to enable the student to perform self-study by using our book. Okay, so dealing with the old and the new curriculum. Again, I explained this in the first webinar. Very briefly, we'll go through it. So topic 1, the weighting is now going to be 45%, right? Which has the introduction to computer hardware and software, Windows 10, file management, Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. Networking is 7.5% of the weighting. We have computational thinking, data information management at 30%. This is completely new, and I'll explain this again in a little more detail. We have internet and communication at 7.5%, and we have digital citizenship at 10%. Okay, so I explained this at the last webinar, and this is important to understand this, because if we understand this, then we realize how the exams have actually changed. Okay, so I'm going to get down now to the breakdown of the assessments. So I did not show this to you the last round. I took this as a screenshot from the curriculum document. There has been a change. This is from version 9. So there is a newer version called version 10. And version 10 is basically just a small changes on the errata of the previous one. So this will be submitted to you via your management. DHET will submit this to each college. Now, if we look at this, we're now dealing with your pass mark. So your pass mark remains at 40%. Your final mark is 40% of your ICAS and 60% of your exam mark, which remains the same. And if you look at how your ICAS is actually produced, you'll see there's now changes taking place. Okay, so we now have 1, 2, 3, 4 tasks. Task 1 is your assignment, and if you look at this assignment, is recommended to have 80 marks as a minimum. And if you look at the scope of this assignment, you can see it's topics 1, 2, 4, and 5. So that is a lot of topics that needs to be covered in this assignment. And if you look at this, it says duration is 2 weeks and it's unsupervised. That carries 10% of your ICAS contribution, right? And something that the developers have brought in, they said that this assignment must be completed using a word processor. Now, this may not be possible at every single college. Some of us do have problems with labs and access to lab times. So that is going to be dependent on the college, whether you're going to make a decision, whether you want students to type out the assignment at college or you're going to give them a chance to do it at home. Okay, but they want this to be typed out using Word. Right. Now your second task is going to be a practical test. That's 90 marks. This has to be at least 50% of the practical components and needs to include at least 2 packages, which essentially you're talking about Word and Excel as a minimum, right? So this must make up your practical test. It needs to be 90 minutes, and this will carry a weighting of 15%, and this has to be in a supervised environment, so like how we run our traditional tests. Then we have task 3, which is now new. This is now dealing with a practical assessment task, also known as a PAT. So those of you all who have interacted with lecturers, the teaching the NCV program, or if you taught in the NCV program yourself, you'll be familiar with this terminology, which we refer to as a PAT, a practical assessment task. Now, this is going to be nationally set, okay? So the first 2 tasks, your assignment and your practical test, will be set at your college, but your third task is going to be set nationally by DHET, and this will be submitted to you. So this is going to be broken down into 2 60 marks PATs, and this is going to have 2 sessions of 60 minutes. So in essence, we're talking about the PATs now being split, right? And one running 60 minutes, another one running 60 minutes. And this now makes up 25% of your ICAS mark, okay? So I will provide you I will explain a bit about how the PATs are intended to run for next year. But those of you that have been exposed to the NCV, you can have a look at the NCV PATs and you'll see how it is structured. It will not deviate much from them. In other words, there'll be a big scenario, there'll be questions, and then it's marked with using rubrics, okay? So the same setting, the same scenario would apply for these PATs as well. Then we have task 4, which is our internal examination, and this is what we normally run. Very important, at least 80% of the syllabus must be covered in this internal examination, and this makes up 50% of your ICAS marks. So if you have a look at it, you got your internal exam, which is set by yourself. You got your national PAT, which is 25%, that gives you 75. Then you got your practical test, and then you get your assignment, and then you get your your 100%. So this is how your ICAS mark is now going to be produced and how it's going to be put together going forward from 2021. Okay, so now coming to your examination. This is now your guidelines for your examination. I did explain this previously, and I'm going to touch on some very important parts here. Now, this is very, very important to bear in mind. So we know it's a 3-hour exam, 200 marks. Section A is theory, Section B is practical. Now, I've already seen sample copies of exam papers being provided by the various publishers will be at the back of the student textbook. But what I want you to bear in mind is that you need to really look at Section A and Section B. Because if you look at, this is where the big change takes place. Currently or previously, Section A used to contain the theory, and in there we normally had a question on operating systems, right, or file management in essence, right? And that we all know is generally a practical question, but yet it is part of the theory section. But now if you look at it, Section B, file management, has its own component there, which is 15 marks. So Section A of 80 marks is pure theory, right? So there's no practical component in there, which is very different from our current setting, which means, and if you look at it carefully, 80 marks out of 200, that gives you 40%. So 40% of your new structure of your exam is going to be theory, and it's going to come from those theory sections. And as you can see, where the weighting is applied for each topic. So we need to look at the material, and this material has to be covered. And by going through the content that you have seen by now, by going through the various publishers, you'll note that there's a lot of theory that needs to be covered. So how do we cover this in the short space of time? It's basically with the use of some certain tools that's going to enable students to remember all this theory. Okay, it's something that they're also not used to, and even the lecturers as well, we are not used to teaching that amount of theory in this particular type of course. When we're looking at Section B, we got our traditional file management, we got Word, we got Excel, PowerPoint is new in them, and then we have integration of modules 1 to 4, which is computational thinking, giving you 15 marks. So this is a question that's going to be similar to your PAT. So your PAT, in essence, will ask the student to perform a task that requires them to use Word, Excel, and PowerPoint. That is giving you your integration. So that similar scenario for your PAT will come through as a question in your exam paper, and that will contribute to 15 marks of the 120. So these are the changes, and I hope I was able to spell this out a bit more. These are some of the questions that came out in the previous webinar. So that's why I spent a bit of time on it to make sure that hopefully explain this and clear everyone's minds. We now have our resources that are required for the course, which is Windows 10. We also require Microsoft Office. You can use 2016, 2019, or Office 365. Security software, web browser, multimedia software, PDF reader, file compression software. Okay, so this is the video, right? I'm not going to play this. You will get this link when Ken sends you the documents via email, and you can access this video. This is about the 4R and basically how it works. Okay, benefits of using the TruePen book. Right, so we rated the best book out of the 15 reviewers. We also have a student book that promotes self-study with rich, colorful content, pictures, annotated figures, and module summaries. So as you can see from the previous explanations, the students need to be able to work by themselves. We need to cover as much as material as possible in a short space of time. So these techniques that we brought in will actually empower you to go through as much as possible and also get the students to remember, especially the theory concepts. Now, if we look at the activities, there was a request for more activities. We have now beefed up the activities in the book. We now have over 166 activities in the book, and we still have 80 examples, and these are your step-by-step examples that we had, that what you've seen in the promo copy. Okay, so the lecture guide contains detailed lesson plans. We also have solutions for the activities, and we have 4 sample question papers, exam question papers, and we also want to provide you with additional questions and solutions in Word format, and this will allow you to set your class tests, assignments, quizzes, and your trial exams. All right, so what we've done, we've also changed the contents page. So we've provided more detail in the contents page. So if you want to look to a particular section, you can now have you can easily find that in this new contents page, and you can easily go to the particular section that you want to see. Okay, that also came through as one of the requests. Right, so the big part. So what are the changes in the new book? We talked about the activities have changed. We now got 166 activities. So how do we actually do that? So what we've done is that we looked at the activities that need to be covered. So we've included 3 different types. We have try to self activities, we have test yourself, and we have summative. So this is how it works. So your try to yourself activities will contain step-by-step screenshots to assist the learner with self-study. So after the concept is introduced to them, we have an example showing them how to use a feature, and then there's a short try to self activity to get them to fully grasp how to use that feature. And then to extend their knowledge and to get them ready for the exams, for the tests and your assignments, is where we have your test yourself activities, which are a little bit more comprehensive and also a lot longer as well. And then finally, what we have also done is that there was a request for sample exam questions. Now, from my experience as well, by teaching in the native sector, we notice we often teach from past year papers. Because of the short nature of the course and because our success rates by using past papers at the early stage, we notice we get them ready for that level of standard. So what we've now done is that we have, if you're seeing that in the sample book, in the promo copy, you're seeing that we have a full past paper at the back of the book. But we've also now included sample questions at the end of every single module. So every module will now have sample questions, and those questions are going to be based on that module only. So here is the breakdown of all our activities module by module, and as you can see, we now managed to reach 166. So this will provide the students with ample practice time to make sure, practice activities to make sure that they're able to master the concepts and get ready for the exams and tests. Okay, so your try it yourself activity. So like I said, this is meant for the student to be able to tackle it on their own after seeing the example, right? And as you can see here, there's explanations of guiding them what to do. There's even some information that allows to build them until the point where they can actually complete the entire activity themselves. So the whole point of this is to be able to try a new concept on their own. This can be completely self-study. So if, for example, we're in the pandemic and you don't have access to your students, they can actually use this and follow completely on their own and complete the activities, right? And this allows them to master the new feature, or you can do it in the class itself and to give them the practice time. Then we have your test yourself activities. These are a lot more comprehensive. This is, in essence, the level of your test and building on towards your exam type of questions. Okay, so as you can see, we are incrementally increasing the level of activities, so we don't bombard them straight away initially an exam type of question and then get them stumped. So this goes at the incremental level. We're actually raising the standard. So in your test yourself activities, we're now The purpose of this is to reinforce the learning and to prepare the student for the assignments and the tests. So times are provided and also mark schemes as well. So they are guide, or you can now gauge to see if they can complete the task during the specific timeline, as they will be expected to do so during a test. Right, so we have provided you with sample exam question papers. So obviously, because the structure has changed drastically, the past papers are not going to be so helpful anymore. So we provided you with sample papers. You'll get full papers at the back of the student book and also on the lecture CD as well. And like we said, we also will provide you sample questions at the end of each module. So at the end of each module, we're calling them summative assessments. So we have adapted this to include full sample exam questions. So here are some screenshots to give an idea of what we actually mean here. So the whole point is to provide you with sample exam questions in every module. They're only based on that particular module, and it's to prepare the students for the test and the exam. So this is obvious advantage. So if you take a past paper and you now want to prepare them, you got to physically look to see which question is actually appropriate to use at this particular point where you are. Now you don't have to worry about doing that because it is all selected for you and placed at the end of each module. So you can be guaranteed you won't be questioned on any content that hasn't been covered thus far. Okay, so like we said, we still have our examples there, and examples are step by step.
Could I just interrupt you for a second?
Yes.
Hi, Shailendra. Whilst you're talking about assessments, there's one question here from Karine Estereza. Should we mark hard copies of all 4 assessments? What's your response to that?
Okay, I think what we'll do, rather let me take that question at the end. I think there may be a few other more questions that will come through. Yeah.
That's fine. We'll do it at the end.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So, like we said, we will still have our examples, and these are the examples that are used to demonstrate to the student how to use a particular feature, and it's meant for them to be able to work on their own. As you can see here, they are step by step and also screen by screen. So it enables self-study. And I'm going to keep on bringing you to this point of self-study because as you can see, besides the pandemic, it's a major part of this new curriculum. Also a big part of what we refer to as computational thinking, which is problem solving, ability to work on your own. So you'll see this through. We make use of multiple tools to enable to build this type of problem solving ability with our students. Okay, so we also demonstrate in the examples multiple methods. Each method is actually demonstrated. So if there are multiple ways of doing something, we showcase them as method 1 and method 2, and the steps are shown along with annotated diagrams to allow the students to follow you or to work on their own. We also have examples with explanations. It's very important when they need to realize why they need to do something in a particular way, and that explanation is now placed in there. Okay, so it's done in a very conversational style as the lecturer would. Again, I mentioned this in the previous webinar. We also present correct and incorrect use of concepts because we know and we use from our experience to try and figure out which sections the students constantly make mistakes in. And I had got some requests to bring in some other sections as well from other lecturers. So I've also brought it into the new book. So some of the common mistakes that students make, obviously we want to make them aware of it at the early stage so they don't actually do it in the exam, right? So a good use and a poor use of a technique, in other words, mean common mistakes that the users make, and explaining to them why it's a mistake, and if they do make the mistake, how do you correct it? Okay, so the whole point of this curriculum is to prepare them for 4IR, and like I mentioned previously, please make sure that the students follow these links so they are aware of the new developments with 4IR. There's a lot of information that's out there from the government and initiatives, and we want them to make the most of that. Okay, then we have some of the, I'm just going to quick summary into some of the new sections. I do see there's some new people here, right? So what are some of the new contents that are being covered? Online collaboration is done now in the course, okay? This is introduced to them practically as well, where you show them how, we actually show them how to create an account and actually collaborate with their documents online. Cybersecurity is also new, right? It's a very important part of actually using the internet, and this is covered as a new part of the curriculum. What else is new? Computer networks is also covered. It's a big part, and it's not just done theoretically, it's also done practically as well, where we actually show the student how to physically set up a network at home. So everyone makes use of Wi-Fi these days, whether you're using a 3G router or an ADSL router to set up Wi-Fi at home or in a small office, right? So this is part of the outcome. We will now demonstrate this to them. This is done step by step, and it's done with diagrams so that they can easily follow and set this up on their own. It'd be a very good idea to actually maybe put this as one of your requirements. You're requesting for resources for next year. Maybe put a request for a small 3G router. This is not very expensive, and you can demonstrate this in class when you get to the stage. Okay, computational thinking. This is a big part. It's a new change in the curriculum. Please note, I have received questions regarding, will our students be able to manage computational thinking? Because it sounds complex, right? The term sounds complex. Even these, what it actually consists of, decomposition, pattern recognition, abstraction, algorithms, they sound a bit complex and intimidating. Just something I want to explain to you guys. If you look at the CAT curriculum in our schools from grade 10 to grade 12, in each year from grade 10, grade 11, and grade 12, there is computational thinking in there. And if you compare our outcomes from this course, you will see a very close similarity with the CAT in the school curriculum. So another good idea would also be to, if you can get your hands on the CAT textbook from school and past papers, then you'll see how computational thinking was covered in schools, and also how they covered it in the exams as well. But there is quite a close similarity between the two. Also, we've heard about government talking about bringing coding and robotics from grade 1 onwards in the new Department of Education curriculum, right? It was supposed to roll out in 2022, but that's going to be delayed now. But that's starting from grade 1 up till grade 9. And computational thinking is a big part of that. So if the government is expecting grade 1s to deal with computational thinking, it is obvious that we want our kids to be able to do the same as well. So these are things they can cope with. It just means a new section that we now need to wrap our heads around. We will provide training next year on some of these components. So if there's any sections that you need training with, please fill in the details on the poll and we'll try and set them up. And we'll also show you how to teach some of these sections as well. Okay, so we'll make use of case studies. And as you can see here, the scenarios are very simple. Now, if you look at this case study, what we've now done is we've also adapted this case study in the final version of the book to represent your PATs. So the PAT that you expected to roll out in 2021, we now have a case study that is part of the textbook that prepares the students for that. So by going through this case study, they are now better prepared to actually attempt that PAT. And also as a lecturer as well, you now have a better idea of how you need to meet the requirements for that PAT. So we brought in case studies to assist you with that. So not just to teach computational thinking, but also to help you with the PAT. Then we have a new section on blogs. So we show how to create a blog. Please note that they have to be able to have access to the internet because besides registering a blog, the theory of it, they physically have to create a blog. And this goes up to N5, right, where they basically have to publish their own blogs. So it's very exciting because it's very easy to do and something that they want to obviously showcase to their friends and family. Hey, I created my first blog. So just some cool things there. Also, we talk about the web, using the web, how to perform searches, how to do research on the internet. Okay, that's also part of the new curriculum. Right, so these are some of the concepts that I had in webinar 1. I just left them in here. Points of the book. We did mention that it's a structured, student-centered approach to allow us to prepare self-study. So to prepare the students for independent work. So these are techniques that we basically have used. So concepts have been covered with annotated diagrams and the explanations follow from them. Okay, we made use of mind maps, okay, to explain diagrams. And here's another example of another mind map to explain the theory. So these things are very important. How do you expect students to remember 150 or 200 pages of theory? The use of mind maps, color, because people learn in the audio visual way. This allows them to actually grasp these theoretical concepts. Okay. Again, I did mention to you how we have color schemed our software applications. So if you look at the whole section on Word, the entire section in that module is blue to match the color scheme of Word. If you look at Excel, the entire section is now color schemed to match green, the color of Excel, and PowerPoint has now been set up to match orange to match the color scheme of PowerPoint. Because we have I have also experienced where students use the wrong package in the exams, purely because they don't like to read, and we see it a lot, right? So by having this sort of color scheme throughout the module, it now gets visually imprinted on their minds. Orange is PowerPoint, green is Excel, blue is Word. Okay, so we do provide you with a CD, and a whole lot of resources are on the CD, such as PowerPoint slides, especially that's going to help the lecturer. That's on the lecture CD. We have work files that's going to assist the students to cover as many activities as possible. And we also have additional problems and solutions that's going to be provided to the student on the student CD that's going to help them with the exams, especially in the theory part, right? Because they always say whatever questions to come out and they want to know the answers. So there's a whole lot of learning resources. We also have additional links to resources such as videos, popular YouTube videos that could help them with difficult topics. Okay, so we have the poll. Again, you can launch the poll now. So this is the poll that's on the, we want to know now if you require additional training on any particular topic. Please put in your information, and we're going to use what we get from the outcomes on the poll to determine whether we're going to actually is the need to run additional training for next year or not.
Okay, on screen you've got the question, would you like training in the following? And you've got 4 or 5 choices. Please indicate your choice, and I'll let you know the percentage that have voted thus far. We're up to 32% voted, and it's fairly close between computational thinking and all of the above. So currently we have computational thinking at about 54%, all of the above at 43%, Windows 10 at 22%. Okay, 65% have voted. Give you another minute, and then we'll close the poll and look at which choice was the most favored. Okay, we're up to 76% of people have voted. Okay. Right, we don't seem to be moving from 76%, so we'll close the poll now at 2 minutes. And the results as follows. Computational thinking, I think the majority of you require training in that section. So Shalendra will make a note of that, and we'll come back to that in due course. Shalendra, you just want to talk about computational thinking as being the front runner in terms of their choices?
Yeah, so guys, so we have now run 4 webinars, essentially 2 that was repeated twice, to give everyone a chance to have a look at our book and also to explain what is new coming through next year. So we ran this poll at each one of these webinars to get an idea, and also to check based on who actually requires that training. So some of you have not attended the previous webinars, so obviously by filling it in now, we'll have an idea of how many people are interested on those. So we will plan these sessions next year, and again, we'll be in contact with you all as when we're going to set this up. We will determine how we want to set this up. Obviously, you need to work on via your colleges and so forth, whether it's going to be a webinar or whether we're going to have a video. So those are going to be something that we're going to look at. But it definitely looks like there's a lot of demand for these training for next year, especially on computational thinking. I did expect that, being quite a new topic, and I'm sure a lot of people are uncertain around it, but it's actually not that difficult once you get into it. Okay, so that's basically the poll. So moving on to our questions. Okay, so the first question, if I can see here, it says, should we mark hard copies for all 4 of your assessments? Okay, that's from Karin. Okay, obviously, we need to have a hard copy of our POEs, right? But what I noticed this year, especially during the lockdown, we needed to mark them digitally as well for some assessments. So I think the intention is for students to do it practically on the computer, but to print it and for lecturers to mark it on the hard copy format. But moving forward with the pandemic, who knows what's going to happen? Because I'm sure by now all the colleges are talking about bringing in our e-learning systems, whether it's Moodle or whatever the case may be, and those packages have facilities in there that allows you to actually mark assessments online, right? So I know the intention, it was meant for the students to do it on the computer, print it out, and for lecturers to mark it. But moving forward with the pandemic, we may get to a situation where we have to mark things online, depending on the college, I think so. But to answer your question, the intention was to do it electronically and then mark it as a hard copy. So in other words, no written assessments. And it even goes to the tests as well. They even wanted the tests to be done on the computer in Word. So students were actually supposed to use Word to actually put in their answers on the test. The second question I can see here, Candice, help me if I missed the question out, but the second question is regarding the webinars. Yes, we will make the webinars available to you. We have noticed because of the internet connections, sometimes the audio has not been that great, so we will make a video as well and send that through, so something more clear. And also the videos that I wanted to play, I will also put it into that video, so you can get a full picture of what I actually intended the webinars to look like, given a good internet connection. Okay, so I hope that covers your questions. I don't see any more. Again, are there any more questions?
We've covered them. Unless anyone wants to pose a question right now at the conclusion of the webinar, you could just raise your hand and then we'll come to you if you have a burning question. I'm not seeing any hands up.
Okay.
Okay, then we'll just say thank you everyone for attending. We hope that this has been a beneficial afternoon for all of you. And obviously we'd like to take this forward and we'll be in touch. And thank you very much, Shailendra, for sharing your time and your knowledge as well.
Yeah. Thank you guys for attending the webinar. I hope it was helpful and look forward to seeing you guys in the training sessions next year. Thank you.
Okay, your feedback, you'll get an email and a Google form where you've got to complete your feedback. So just be on the lookout for that. That should be in your email box very, very soon. Thank you very much. Take care.
Okay, bye.
Bye-bye.